Get ready. This is a day we've been waiting for some time. It's been on our conversation, in our minds, in our calendar. So we are here and really glad to have all of you present today for this task force talking about homelessness. We're going to go around and do introductions. So just really brief, but I would like to start with David actually, and just kind of have a sentence or two of who you are, in your name, but also just a sentence or two of what brings you here to the conversation of homelessness, please. And we'll just circle around.
I'm David Shad. I am the Chief Clinical Officer at the Hope Center. I've been at the Hope Center for 15 years now, so have worked a lot with the homeless population. In my time there, we've developed a street outreach team, and we went from like one and a half, two buildings over there to like the whole campus over there on Loudon. So things have grown substantially in that time. I didn't do it, but I'm just saying. So, obviously I have a lot of interest in this issue, and also on the OHPI board, chair of the advocacy committee. So, that's a little about me.
Hi, I'm Janice James, and as my introduction says, I'm retired from the Hope Center, but I worked there 22 years and had interactions with many of y'all that I love, and I love this, what this group is trying to do. I was on the task force that recommended that we have a HPI board, our HPI office, and then served on it. So I am looking forward to the good efforts of this task force.
Do you have it?
If anybody needs any technical assistance, you'll want to press the button that looks like a person with the sound waves coming out of their mouth.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm non-technical. I'm Jenny Ramsey, and I'm the co-founder and director of the Catholic Action Center. My interest has been the passion of taking care of our folks. When I was first introduced and recognized that we had people without a home in Lexington, which kind of just happened in a strange way in 1994 when Mayor Pam Miller asked me to do a task force on the faith and community addressing poverty. So it's a long time, but I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful that Mayor Gordon has called this together, because as you may have known, we're very loud about it, never have shied back away from the fact that we need more for the folks, and we have to do it together. So thank you very much, and I look very much forward to this.
How are you doing? My name is Gregory Seawright, and I am homeless. I'm not proud of it, but life shows up. I'm glad that I was invited here. I'm gonna be honest with you. We need some help. A lot of my friends is out here freezing to death, hungry, nowhere to go. Family won't take us in. We all mess up. We all make some mistakes, but we just need a chance to get on our feet again. And maybe doing this here, maybe y'all can take it into consideration to help us. Stop looking at us like a we is a germ or something. If you ain't never been homeless, you don't know how it is. It's a whole different world out there. All we ask is for a little bit of help, just a little bit. That's it. Just give us another chance to start living again. Stop looking at us like we walk down the street. Oh, he's panhandling. He needs to get a job. A lot of us got mental problems. We need help in that area. So if y'all can just sit back and think about helping us out, we would appreciate it very much. Thank you.
I'm Zach Worsham with Winterwood Incorporated. We're a Lexington-based affordable housing development property management firm. We've been around for just a little over 45 years here in Lexington. And so affordable housing has been our mission that entire time. So I think there's a lot of convergence in this committee and our work, and have the privilege of working with Commissioner Lander's office often, and just grateful to be here. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's an honor to be on this task force. I'm TC Johnson. I'm with Fayette County Public Schools. I'm on my 28th year on that battlefield. The past 3 years, I served as the liaison for our McKinney-Vento students, which are our homeless students. We ended up at the school year of last year with 1,100 homeless students. So I truly believe that our homeless is not just what the stereotype is, but we have to take in consideration for our young people as well, is that we had over 100 of our youth were unaccompanied homeless students last year. And so I'm very passionate about the work, and I'm very honored to be able to serve.
Good afternoon. I'm Amy Beasley. I'm the 8th District City Council. It's an honor to be on this task force, and I hope that we can come together for a permanent solution and not just keep making more Band-Aids.
Hi, I'm Sally Hamilton, and I'm the Chief Administrative Officer for the city. And I've worked with many of you, and Hope Thinner and Jenny. And I work every day with Charlie Lanter and Jeff Heron, and know what they do, and I'm here to try to help. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm James Brown, council member at large. Used to represent District 1, which has a lot of the services that are provided to our unhoused community. Also currently serve on the Salvation Army board. I have done some work with the extended social resource policy, the affordable housing policy, and it's an honor to be on this board. I hope to learn from those impacted and from those that provide services in our community. So thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Chuck Ellinger. I'm the longest serving council member on the council right now. I'm an at-large like council member Brown here. And budgets are about priorities and how we spend our money. And I think this is where we really need to make a focus. I'm passionate about this work. Housing is a right, not a privilege. We have to make sure we take care of it. As Greg said, let's make sure we get help to everybody. And I'm here to go through the emergency homeless study and find a way that we can make sure that we do what makes Lexington great and make sure people are off the street. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Sheehan. I'm the council member serving the 5th District of Lexington. I am a member of the Homelessness Prevention and Intervention Board, and I'm also the chair of the Committee for Program Performance and Evaluation. That basically for that committee of the HPI board, we hear from all of the service providers that we provide funding to, and then we can have discussions about what's going on in the community. So I'm happy to see such a diversity of perspectives on this task force, and I appreciate the mayor bringing us together. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Lee Hall. I am on this group because the mayor called and asked me to do this. I represent Hallway Feeds, which is on Loudon Avenue. We're the one of the few public businesses that are on Loudon Avenue and are neighbors to the Hope Center. So that's really about all I can tell you about where I am. I think most of you that have been through that area know who we are and where we are. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Denotra Sproul-Gunther, and I am the Fayette District Court Judge in the 1st Division of the Fayette District Court. As you all know, we're the People's Court. So we do have a lot of people that come before us that are unhoused. And they're before us because they're unhoused a lot of times, and not because necessarily they've committed some type of offense. We have people every day that refuse to even come to arraignment because it's cold outside and they don't want to be released. They won't sign even administrative release to just sign your name and get out of jail. So I'm certainly humbled and honored to be asked to be a part of this group. And I hope that I can bring some type of substantive position. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Jay Blanton. I work at UK in our University Relations Office, which is sort of PR and community relations, and very appreciative of the opportunity to serve on this. We see the impact and importance of this issue up close to our campus every day. So very supportive of the idea of hoping to be part of a solution for our community.
Good afternoon. I'm Alan McDaniel with Downtown Lexington Partnership here with more than 150 of our members who are all grateful that we have a seat on this committee and want to know what we can do to try to make a difference in the community and help everybody figure out their housing situation in dignity.
Good afternoon. I'm Todd Johnson. I'm with the Building Industry Association of Central Kentucky.
We have about 750 companies that are members of our group that all have a hand in providing housing. Probably the majority of the housing is built in our community. And I'm honored that the mayor asked me to serve.
And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abdul Muhammad, and I'm humbled actually just to be here looking around the room, seeing a lot of familiar faces and a lot that I don't know. But because the mayor asked so many of us to be here, I think it's a great challenge and a great honor to be here. And then as you listen to, and it's just kind of thinking about the why, and so, you know, you hear about homelessness that our judge just mentioned. We hear about, 1,100 plus students in the school district that's homeless. We hear about Greg saying, hey, we need some mental help. And so what I looked at when the mayor called was that, what can I bring to the table? So I agreed to be a co-chair and looking to learn from everybody around this room, but then willing to put together some type of meaningful path that we can really address not just what we see, but what's happening in our community around homelessness, physical, mental, social, everything. So thanks for being here. And with that, I'll turn it back over to my gracious co-chair here and take us to the next step.
Thank you so much. Mayor, I'm not forgetting you, but I know you have minutes. So is it all right if I go to the advisory team first? Is that all right? So congratulations for everybody who's part of the mayor's task force. I'm so happy that you all are here as part of this board. We also have, with the mayor's wisdom, has advisors that will be here to share information as we're kind of percolating ideas. So Charlie, if you can just go ahead, Commissioner Lanter, if you can just go ahead and just real quickly, we'll go around the advisory team.
I'm Charlie Lanter. I'm the Commissioner of Housing Advocacy and Community Development. You'll meet several of our staff members here who will be doing all of the support work for the task force.
I am Jeff Herron. I'm the manager of the Office of Homelessness Prevention and Intervention. I thank everyone for being here today.
Good afternoon, Chris Ford, Commissioner of General Services, former Social Services Commissioner and former First District Council member. Look forward to supporting our efforts.
Good afternoon, Dave Barbary with the Law Department. We're happy to help staff the group.
Good afternoon. My name is Sean Denny, and I'm here today on behalf of Commissioner Keith Horn in the Department of Planning and Preservation.
Good afternoon. I'm Major Lamont. I'm with the Division of Community Corrections. Thank you for having public safety as a part of this conversation.
I'm Daniel Burnett, West Sector Patrol Commander representing the Police Department.
I'm Lieutenant Young, Lexington Fire. I run the Community Paramedicine Program.
Good afternoon. First, all honor to God, who is truly the head of my life. I am former First District Council member Tana Fogel. I am an impacted person who came through homelessness with my son, so I know firsthand what it's like to be homeless. I bring boots on the ground to this group and just a lot of contact. In the last 2 days, we had over 100 people at the Lighthouse Ministry that spent the night in the weather. First night we had 89, then we went to about 103 on the second night. So I'm a little bit tired, but I'm here to advise and give y'all firsthand information. Thank you, Mayor Gordon, for stepping up and doing the job that is part of this 250 Lex. I'm so proud of you and the rest of the team. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I was remiss not to introduce myself. I'm Diane Fleet, co-chair with Abdul Muhammad, and I am the current chair of the COC and the HPI board. And I'm also honored to be here, for this conversation and this I'm hoping that we can have really some frank conversations and really kind of get into some grittiness in this work and really hear the needs that people are experiencing, but also the wisdom that is sitting around this room. Thank you so much for the public for being here, the community, and people that are listening in. And so now I'm going to turn over to the mayor, who's going to kind of lead us in the charge of what we are here to do.
Thank you. I like to see everybody, so I'm going to stand up so I can see you. So the first thing that I want to talk about is I'm supposed to talk about the vision, the expectations, and the goals. So last January, as we do every January, we did our homeless count in the city, which follows the HUD guidelines that every city in the United States follows. So we have a good way to compare ourselves, not only with other cities, but with ourselves. And I was very disturbed that our homeless count, which follows these guidelines every year, showed that we had grown by about 100 homeless people. It was very disturbing. Now, our number, which follows this certain protocol before the count, was 800. Afterward, it was a little around 900. And we should all be disturbed by that. And I first cannot thank you all enough for being on this mission. It's not going to be easy, and it's probably not going to be fun every minute of the meetings, right? But it can be some of the most impactful work that we have ever done for people. And I talk all the time about government and our partners, which many of you are. If we're not serving people, then there's no reason for us to be here, right? We might as well go away because our mission is only people focused. So with that, somebody said, are you going to take a nap? No. When I very first ran for mayor, and even before that, my motto was dream big. And a really good friend of mine gave me this when I first got elected mayor. And it means a lot to me. What it means is think outside the box, be creative. Say things that you think, oh no, everybody's going to hate this if I say it, but say it. That's how we will get good discussion. And we're going to dream big. And my big dream is that this group will do this kind of work to help us lower our numbers of people who are unhoused. That is the goal. It's not to keep people in housing for the rest of their lives. It's to help those who can move forward. And like Greg said, they need help doing that, right? And it's up to us to get to a place where we feel we can do that. So, we may not be able to get everyone out of homelessness, but we sure can help a few people move forward in different ways, whether it's mental health treatment, whether it's addiction recovery, whatever it is. We may not know all the ways, but we can certainly make a dent in a lot of people's lives. And I don't know about you, but I do think that most, if not all, of our homeless adults did not start out homeless. Think about it. I don't think they did. Something happened along the way. And it's different stories by different people. So with that, you have a page in your book that talks about formal charge. And I know that the first thing people are going to think of is we need more shelters, we need more shelters, we need more shelters. You know, quite honestly, and you may disagree with some of the things I say, but that's okay. We can do a shelter inside government without a task force, right? This is bigger than a shelter. It may include a shelter. We realize that, but it is much bigger than that. And so right here at the beginning, what it talks about is focusing on programming. And I think this is what I think Tana was talking about. I think Greg was talking about. It's what Jenny does. We cannot just keep thinking we can put people in housing, shelter, and do nothing. There's a reason they are unhoused. So I would like you to think creatively, and there's a lot of this already going on in our community. The Hope Center is a great example. Stable Recovery. If you are not familiar with that program, you need to learn about it. It is taking people in addiction, many of whom were homeless. They are living on tailor-made farm. They have to take care of the home where they live. They have to attend their meetings, whether it's AA or whatever it is. They then learn skills to take care of horses. They are putting many people back into the workforce. People who can be on medication or who can be in their addiction recovery groups forever. There are things like that going on around our community every day. And so I want you to look at these kinds of things and think about what we can do. I would like you, and we haven't talked about a timeline yet. You'll figure that out, I'm sure. But I want you to provide formal recommendations to me. What are our next steps? What should we be doing strategically? How can we bring partners in from in the city? You know, the government can't do everything by itself, right? We are not an endless pot of money. So we're going to need all kinds of partners to do this good work. And so you see here some of the primary goals. Development models is number one. We look at our shelters. We look at integration of on-site services. We may not have to create everything. There may be things out there we say, okay, they are doing a great job with this. Let's see how we can make it even better. The shelter needs, of course, are there as number two, and that will be part of the discussion. Financial options, you know, everything pretty much costs money, right? If you do it right. Unless you have volunteers who are bringing food, right, Jenny, and volunteering time and things like that. But this, you know, this can be a big effort in a lot of different ways. It doesn't have to be all one thing. And then the community engagement is huge. We have to have this. And I know that along the way, you will have some sessions that are pure community input, and we need that in order to know what people are thinking works. I know that some are on the agenda and will kind of take you through some of the models that are really working throughout the country. When we went to Frankfurt and talked with some of our legislators about this issue, they were actually really helpful because they told us about some cities that are doing programs that are working and they're decreasing their numbers of homeless people. So we want to look at really good models. We know from what is coming out about Austin that a gigantic facility is not going to work for the community. It just isn't. Austin is having, if you haven't read about what's going on there, they're having some really big issues because they built a gigantic shelter. And I can send you that article if you want it. And so we want to look at what works, what doesn't work. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. And, you know, we want to try to have fun along the way with a real serious issue. And so I, again, want to thank you all for agreeing to serve. I was very focused on having people from many different sectors with many viewpoints. You are going to get into some heavy discussion because some of you will disagree with others about what we need. And that's just, in my view, something you work through, you know, in discussions and everything. If you look to the back of this, what I want is specific recommendations that are actionable. They're really doable. And we need short-term and long-term solutions. And so I don't have a preconceived idea of what this will look like. And that's why I'm putting a lot of faith and trust in you all to help us figure that out for our people here in Lexington. And knowing that our population is growing, we need to do this. And so I think it will be a really great effort. And remember, dream big. That doesn't necessarily mean millions and millions of dollars. It may not mean, we don't know what it means. But don't be afraid to have the conversations that are going to be difficult conversations. So thank you very much. And thank you to all of you who said yes. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So Commissioner Lanter, I think we're moving on to you to talk about the task force charge and responsibilities.
If you don't have a microphone, just bring your own. I am really, really excited about this, more so than I was even this morning, because I realized that I've been doing this for 11 years now, and I don't think in that 11 years we have ever had such a diverse group of stakeholders in one room to talk about this issue. And we've had a lot of meetings for 11 years. In fact, a lot of people may not know this, but the last time we did a task force on homelessness, the one Janice spoke about earlier, you got me. Because you created the Office of Homelessness and I was hired as the first director. So I've been tied inextricably to this from the very beginning. And I'm really excited to see what comes of this particular initiative as well. The mayor talked about what we're going to go over, and I'm going to try and go into a little more detail of that before I turn it over to Jeff. But the one thing, the theme I hope that's emerging that you're picking up on is we're not going to tell you what Lexington needs. We didn't come to this with a preconceived notion. We didn't come to this with an idea in mind, with a program in mind. We're not trying to guide this towards a specific solution. We just want your help, and we need your help, and our community needs your help. And so we appreciate you being here to do this. We need to look at 4 key things. We need to look at what are the best practices in the country. Who's doing this? Who's doing it well? And is comparable to us, because what works in Los Angeles, to use an extreme example, is probably not appropriate for Lexington. What works in Bourbon County, Kentucky probably isn't appropriate for Lexington. We need a solution that's right for us. I tell people all the time, if you've met someone experiencing homelessness and heard their story, you've met and heard one story, because every story is different. And the path that led them there is different. Well, what that means is the path out is different. And so there is no one solution. There's no one size fits all. What you have to do is find a customized option that meets your needs based on who in your community is not being served. So that's where we start. If you're not beginning with the end in mind, then where do you start? We need to know where we sit today. How many people in our community are experiencing homelessness, and who are they? And then what solutions do we already have in place? And who are they not serving? Who are we not meeting the needs of? And then how do we meet those needs? So how do we pivot using existing resources or otherwise? Because again, we don't know what that is yet. That's something we're going to be asking you to do. And we're going to support you all along the way. Tiffany Masden on the end here. I don't remember if Tiffany actually introduced herself, but she will be the lead staff support for this task force. Tiffany works for me, Jeff Herron, who you'll hear from in a minute. We're sort of your core staff. We're your staff. We're here to do the research, put the data together, get you the information that we need as a task force, as a community, to make these recommendations and to make these decisions. So where do we stand? The mayor talked about going from 800 to 925. Homelessness in Lexington and it started out declining 10 years ago. We made a lot of progress following the last task force. So if you want to take away some really encouraging news from this, the last time we did this, we dropped homelessness by 20-30% within a few years following the task force. So it can work. But what's happened is COVID-19. The pandemic came along and changed the game for those of us who work in this business. we are seeing a greater incidence of homelessness and more severity amongst the issues related to it. So what do I mean by that? More severe mental illness, more severe and more prevalent addiction, and or more difficult substances. We all know about the opioid epidemic. That's a whole lot different than helping somebody who's an alcoholic. But don't get distracted by stereotypes, and don't get distracted by even your own blinders of what you see homelessness as. Because I can tell you, a lot of people, everyone has an opinion. I've been doing this 11 years. I've heard 11,000 reasons of what causes homelessness. But you know what doesn't cause it? Most of the things you think causes it. Because with 50 million alcoholics in the United States, but we don't have 50 million people who are homeless. We got millions and millions of drug addicts. We don't have millions of people who are homeless. So if these things cause homelessness, then it's not happening at that rate. However, they're deeply related. You cannot extract one from the other. So you have to have those services in whatever your solution is. But that's how this has changed. Our system was built in the 1980s and 1990s. When Hope Center came along, when Jenny came along. And it was developed at a time when homelessness looked different. It looked like single, unaccompanied men, often with mental illness or addiction. And our system was built to address that. The Hope Center is the best example. Large congregate facility serving single men, and then providing those wraparound services that are associated with that: mental health, addiction treatment, employment, all the rest. The problem is homelessness today is trending toward women with children, families, couples, people with pets. Everything I just named, we do not have a shelter designed to take. So there's one of the first challenges we're going to talk about and look at is maybe we need to take the resources we have and make sure that we're adjusting them to fit the more current modern need. That's a big reason why we're here. Another big reason why we're here is to make sure we do it right. Because you can spend millions of dollars on homeless solutions and waste your time and your money if you do it wrong. And we don't want to do that as a community. So we're going to examine the return on investment for each of these items. Is the program or project resulting in people no longer being homeless? Is it resulting in people being permanently housed? Because if someone lives in a homeless shelter, they're still homeless. We're going to talk about definitions, but that's a key point to take away. That's not an end game. That's not a goal. It's a starting point. And so that's another part of this process. You're going to learn that homelessness as a system is deeply complex. The people in the business already know this. I'm not telling them anything you didn't know. TC earlier described it as a battlefield. I thought that was probably the best analogy I heard of anyone who was introducing themselves. Because for those of us who do this on a daily basis, that's what it feels like. It feels like a battlefield, and it feels like we're losing. And so that's why we're here. Because this is a battle we can win if we do it right. So I'm going to wrap up, but I want to leave you with this. Jeff's going to come up and talk about what homelessness looks like in Lexington. He's going to talk about the data. He's going to talk about who does what, all of those kinds of things. And then one thing I want you all to look at when he's done is, what are your next steps going to be? What do you want to do next? What do you want to learn next from us? And we're going to ask you that question. So be thinking as Jeff talks about what you don't know and what you still want to know, so that we can get ready for the next meeting. But remember this, our system was designed for yesterday's homelessness. We're here to design a system for today's homelessness and tomorrow's, so that we don't have to do this again in 10 years. Jeff?
I'm just going to real quick, one of the pleasures of, I can move the microphone. I didn't realize that. It's really exciting. I didn't know this. One of the pleasures of being co-chair, and I think Abdul has a few remarks as well, is just again to kind of ground us, to get our kind of brain sort of percolating in this space as we're listening. So I just have a few comments, but I have to write things down. I think you free flow better than me. All right. So I just want to say, as we spend the next several months together or longer, wrapping our heads around the issues that lead to homelessness and creating a response that provides care for some of our most vulnerable citizens, I challenge all of us to shift from a perspective that attempts to fix a person experiencing homelessness, that the answer somehow dwells within them, but rather to place our gaze on the economic environment and systems that often lead to homelessness. In my work as a domestic violence advocate, I'm aware that often with the best intentions, great attention is placed on victims' behavior, and we often lose sight of abusers' behavior and the need from an educated community response. Similarly, if we truly understand what leads to homelessness and to be effective in our task, we must look beyond the individual and be willing to look at the challenging array of systems that often leave many in our community behind. To steal a page from the mayor's playbook, I love this, Lexington is a compassionate community. We must recognize that we will always have Lexingtonians that need our respect, our care, and our support due to their age, physical, and mental health. Other folks will move through the homeless experience with minimal support. Others will require extra supportive services. And unless we are willing to tackle such things as living wage, FMLA, domestic violence, affordable housing, childcare, this will not be a one-size-fits solution. Lastly, I'd request that we let go of our need to determine who is worthy and who is not. All of our people deserve to be valued and cared for. We will share today and throughout our meeting some of the myths that surround homeless community. The narrative that some people are taking advantage of scarce resources sometimes gives us a permission to look the other way because we just can't determine who is worthy of our support and care. But I truly believe that by the vast experiences many of the people who live on the street, Salvation Army, Hope Center, Arbor Youth, Greenhouse 17, Catholic Action Center, these folks genuinely need our support, care, and belief in their experiences. I say all this because I hope that Lexington creates something creative and bold. We will review some of the best practices from other communities during our time together. My hope is that someday we will be invited to share our ideas and what we've come up with in our creativity to other communities. So let's shake loose what we think we know. Let's learn from one another. Let's have frank conversations. Let's always center the experience of the homeless community in our discussion, and let's think boldly. Thank you. Okay, you go next.
I'll pass the baton back to
I
Jeff.
worked really hard on that. I practiced that. All right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. All right, Jeff.
Thank you all. Wanted to make sure that we start off with some introductory concepts. Definitely don't want anyone here to be alarmed if they miss a statistic or a figure. This is all just to kind of lay some groundwork and give you an opportunity to listen. Definitely there will be many more opportunities for you to review data, have notes in front of you, really just trying to lay some groundwork. So one thing, starting with, Charlie did mention some definitions. I think it's important for us to understand that some of the information that we already have or might be familiar with might not be operating on the same definitions of homelessness. So within the federal government alone, there are multiple differing and competing definitions of homelessness. Probably the two that we are primarily likely to hear the most about within this group are going to be the definitions employed by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and the definition employed by the U.S. Department of Education. To go ahead and kind of give a kind of general sense of how those definitions would differ, the HUD definition is going to be most aligned with those that are experiencing literal homelessness. They lack any other alternative, so they are staying in places such as emergency shelter, transitional housing programs that are dedicated to persons experiencing homelessness, or places not meant for human habitation. That might be an encampment, it might be in a vehicle, it might be an abandoned building. By contrast, the Department of Education's definition is going to be more equated to lacking a fixed, stable, overnight residence. So this is going to be a more expansive definition that would include things like individuals that are couch hopping, staying place to place, doubled up, maybe even living in a hotel with their own funds. So those are going to differ. Additionally, I point out things like institutional settings. When we conduct our annual census count, the point in time count, it would not include individuals that are staying in an institution like a hospital or the jail. In HUD terms, those individuals have somewhere to reside that night and are not in a setting that is specifically for individuals who are experiencing homelessness. This is kind of the groundwork that helps illustrate the difference between some of the information that you hear in the media. So for example, when we say that there are 925 persons that per our point in time count were experiencing homelessness, that's going to be different than what the Catholic Action Center street survey might show or what McKinney-Vento statistics might be available through the public school system. That's not to say that we don't need to look at all of those different counts and the people that are included within them. It's to really kind of understand that a lot of the data that we're going to be referencing is going to focus on this HUD definition. As the mayor pointed out, this is something that is done in communities across the country. Each community is tasked with developing a continuum of care, or COC, and one of their responsibilities is to execute an annual census count of persons experiencing homelessness per the HUD definition. We conduct this count in the last 10 days of January of each year. This is important because it gives us a more accurate statistic. Generally speaking, we see seasonal trends with our population where warmer, more hospitable temperatures might make it easy for someone who, for example, does not want to go to a congregate shelter to potentially choose an alternative like an encampment. However, we see in the winter months with more severe weather, we're going to have more persons experiencing homelessness that access emergency shelter because the conditions make it such that staying in the encampment when it's 10 degrees below zero is going to be far fewer people that are able to do that. And so it helps us get a more accurate count. Included in the packet for today is a booklet that we will reference throughout our entire journey as a task force. These are the official results of our annual point in time count from 2014 when this office was established through the current year. As has already been mentioned today, in 2025, we had 925 persons that were experiencing homelessness. That would be 810 persons in emergency shelter, 48 persons in transitional housing, and 67 persons who were unsheltered. That is a 100 person increase over 2024, or a 12% increase. If we go back to 2020 and think about the impact of COVID-19, this is where we see the positive progress that we were making begin to reverse. Since 2020, we've had an increase of approximately 34% in those that are counted as homeless in our point in time count. What this largely factors into is several things. One, we as a community have a vacancy rate that is lower than both the state and national average. That means that there's more people that are competing for affordable housing units. Additionally, we have average rents for every unit size that are higher than HUD fair market rent values. Typically, those are the values that our assistance programs per the federal government are authorized to pay rent on the individual's behalf. Essentially, what we're seeing now is a system where our inflow is outpacing our outflow. This isn't to say that there aren't valuable resources within our community or providers that are doing good work that we should be taking note of or looking at for how it can complement our recommendations. We are just literally in a position where we cannot exit people to permanent housing as quickly as people fall into it. Some other information that I would like for you to understand, in 2025, the 810 persons that were residing in emergency shelter was the highest level of emergency shelter utilization that we have seen in the Lex Count history. This means that while shelter is not necessarily the solution, it is part of the equation and should be reflected within our recommendations. Additionally, this is one night of the year represented by this data. It does not necessarily reflect what we would see throughout the year. To give context, our system would serve approximately 5,000 persons on an annual basis. We can present additional information in the future, data from our longitudinal systems analysis, which is going to look at homelessness from an annual standpoint rather than one fixed evening. A couple other things that I'm going to go ahead and point out on this chart. It's going to be a little bit hard to see if you're looking on the screen, but hopefully you're looking at your packet. You're going to see a very significant difference between 2017 and 2018. Per the notes at the bottom, this does not solely represent the good work of providers in our community. This also has to do with the fact that there were programs that were transitional housing that did not carry a homeless requirement for eligibility. So therefore, per HUD guidance should not be included in the point in time count. So correcting that and removing those programs is a part of why we see a drop from 1,051 in 2017 to 685 persons in 2018. That's important for us to understand because otherwise we would probably be looking at that 1 year period and wondering where that magic solution is and if we can replicate it. It was correcting the way that the count was conducted. There were programs that, to be a transitional housing program that is included in this count, a program has to carry as an eligibility requirement that persons are experiencing homelessness, and they have to be able to document and track that individuals met the homeless definition prior to coming into these programs. So for example, a sober living home, which its primary goal is to provide a recovery environment for persons that are trying to address a substance problem, that is not going to be included in this count. Those individuals, they're not there primarily for addressing homelessness, and those providers are not tracking whether or not those individuals met certain criteria upon entry to a sober living program, for example.
We were included, the Hope Center program, recovery programs were included just as a reference, and that on any given night is probably 250 or more people. So like you factor just our programs in, you can see like a big difference there.
So it was One Parent Scholar House.
Yeah, that's true.
Also, other things that I would want to point out, we are going to see in 2021 also a reduced number. This had to do with high rates of COVID-19 within our community, and we applied for and were granted a HUD waiver that allowed us not to complete our unsheltered count that year. The reason that has a significant impact is if you kind of look across that row, you'll see that our numbers of unsheltered homelessness have been increasing over the years. We had a slight decrease this year down to 67 over 82 on the previous year, but you'll see a big goose egg in 2021. So that alone has a significant impact in reducing the overall level of homelessness if you're just looking at a flat number. Other trends and demographics that I think that we should focus on. We are seeing our largest increases presently among youth and families. There are several different tables within this booklet broken down by things like household type and then also where people are being served, such as emergency shelter versus transitional housing versus those who are unsheltered. And you will see, and you look in those tables, that the numbers are creeping up for families, not just in the number of households, but also the number of persons in those households. We've also seen an increase in youth age 18 to 24. It's important to understand that when HUD refers to youth within this context, that's who they're talking about, individuals 18 to 24. We have consistently seen increases amongst that age group since 2020. Additionally, with single adults, we see fluctuations year over year. So it's hard to really say that there is certain directionality when we are talking about single adult households. What I can say is we are seeing an increased challenge in serving women who are experiencing homelessness. That's a definite area that we need to increase our resources for. Also wanted to go ahead and introduce a little bit of information as it often comes up when people are trying to envision who it is that we're here to focus on, and some information around subpopulations. We will get much more in the weeds on this, but for now, chronic homelessness in our community is about 20% of those who are included in our annual count. While that has been consistent on average, because our numbers overall are increasing, so are the number of persons that are experiencing chronic homelessness, even if the average is around 20%. What that means is that we also need to think about some long-term recommendations. Those that are chronically homeless by HUD definition are experiencing 12 months or more of homelessness, either cumulative or consecutive, in the past 3 years. They also, for this definition, would have a disabling condition. So these are people who are not going to necessarily always be quickly transitioned. A short shelter stay followed by some kind of rental assistance may not be enough to permanently stabilize them in housing. They may need some long-term support. Other subpopulations, approximately 63% of individuals self-report one or more disabling conditions. Those can range in the type of disability and the severity, but 63% of our population has some kind of condition which impedes their ability to obtain and maintain housing on their own. Approximately 19% self-report a substance use disorder. Additionally, 20% would self-report a serious mental illness, not just that they have a mental health condition, but that it does have a functional impairment, which impacts their ability to maintain housing. And approximately 8% self-report actively fleeing domestic violence. What I'll talk about in some of our future meetings is we can get and examine these numbers at all kinds of different levels. We can look at what kinds of rates do we see across our state for persons that are experiencing serious mental illness. We can compare that to what we see locally. The reality is the majority of persons in each of these subpopulations does not experience homelessness. It is very rare when we break it down by the numbers. The key is that these are individuals who lack housing and who lack support systems that can help them navigate when crisis hits. Those are the core issues that we are trying to address. Next, moving into some key findings from our 2025 emergency shelter study. We did include both the full docket and the full document in your packet, as well as a one-page overview. And that's what Tiffany is displaying here now. And this kind of helps us really understand where we are at with our current system. Presently, we have only 498 year-round shelter beds. To take that 810 persons from our 2025 point in time count, if we were to see that level throughout the entire year, we would be operating at 163% of our year-round bed capacity. That is not sustainable. It's also a barrier to persons being able to access shelter, not just because shelters may be full, but because there are a number of individuals who cannot succeed in an environment where there's that much stimulation, that many people. It can be a barrier to them even attempting to go and access that resource. If we were to include overflow beds, we get to 612 year-round beds. Overflow beds are things like mats, cots, things that might be in a common area or in a hallway. These are measures that providers are implementing in order to keep people safe during things like extreme weather. They are not intended to be utilized every night. If we look at our year-round capacity, including overflow, we are still operating at 123% of our capacity if seeing numbers like the 810 persons in shelter on the evening of the 2025 point in time count. We have largely mitigated this through seasonal resources. Each year, we probably add approximately 200 beds to our system by investing about approximately $2 million each year in seasonal solutions. It's important for us to understand that that investment would be better served to develop year-round resources rather than seasonal resources. In addition to the money, we also have just the logistical and capacity issues of our providers and our system being able to scale up and serve 200 additional people for 5 to 6 months out of the year. If we include those seasonal resources, though, we still don't have much wiggle room. We have 893 beds, including year-round, overflow, and seasonal in our current system per our housing inventory count. And if we saw that 810 persons in shelter, we would still be operating at 91% of our capacity. So even with that additional seasonal investment, we are very close to being at capacity and have very little room for additional persons to fall into our system. Other things that I'll point out from the study can.
Where is all of this money going at? Can you honestly tell me what this part money is going to, this money is going to?
So are you talking about like the 2 million for
Yeah.
seasonal investments? So that's going to be approximately 200 beds that supplement beds for adult men and women. It would be things like additional funding to Community Action Council, approximately 200,000 each year to expand family shelter, oftentimes through the use of hotel rooms. And then we typically have to have some kind of a response for those that have more significant mobility or disability needs. So we would have a program that would also be funded around 200,000 each year to provide beds for those that are medically fragile. And part of that is also when we do something like a site-based temporary shelter, we have to install utilities. We have to do certain site work just to prep the site for being capable of having a shelter there. That's usually going to be probably somewhere between 500 and 700,000 just for things like structures and site work. If we go to a hotel-based model, we would see a high level of money that goes towards things like covering damages, pet fees, smoking fees. So temporary measures are always going to carry a higher price tag. To give context, $2 million would probably be closer to the annual operating budget of a shelter like the Hope Center. So we could get much more year-round with that same level of investment. We'll always probably need some additional resources in the winter, but we can significantly reduce that with additional year-round beds. EHI consultants found in looking at their study of our shelter system that projecting for our needs by 2030, we are likely to have a population closer to 1,082 persons, and they would recommend that we have 500 additional beds within our system. So that does not necessarily have to be 500 additional shelter beds. Again, thinking about the fact that about 20% of this population are persons experiencing chronic homelessness, we should consider having things like transitional housing and permanent supportive housing as part of those 500 additional beds within our system. Generally, a good rule of thumb would be to have about 4 times as many permanent housing beds as you do for each shelter bed. So if we wanted to create 100 additional shelter beds, that would definitely alleviate our capacity. And then by building 400 transitional and permanent housing beds, we give opportunities for people to transition on to self-sufficiency. It's not, however, just the number of beds that the study illuminated a need for us to address, but also models, how we operate. So for example, we need a low barrier trauma-informed shelter. When most of our shelters presently operate with multiple pages of rules, how easy is it for you to sit down and read 4 pages, 5 pages of rules, maintain all of that, keep it in track, make sure you follow it, then compound that with people who might have other challenges. They might have a learning disability. They might have a substance use issue. They might have a mental health issue. We have made a system that operates medium to high barrier, where someone by a minor rule infraction, instead of being treated with trauma-informed services and helping to correct an issue and bring somebody back to following the guidelines, instead that person's displaced and potentially restricted from shelter. We also need shelter that is private or semi-private in its accommodations. One of the number one barriers to shelter is those that cannot be in an environment where there is a high number of other persons. So we need some individual family units. We need to explore things like what the Hope Center has done with their new addition, where they were able to put people in semi-private pods where they might be with 4 to 8 people in an environment versus 200 men sleeping in a large shelter setting. We also need to increase the supports that are available within our shelter system. We have very few case managers at our large congregate shelters, and they carry very high caseloads. It's not that these supports are not available at all, it's that it's challenging for them to be able to truly meet the need and spend the individual time that is needed to guide each individual or household. We also need to improve accessibility. One of the findings of the study was that when people have more significant, for example, mobility issues, they may not be adequately served within our congregate settings. A lot of these are facilities that were built decades ago that weren't being built with things like wheelchair access in mind. Finally, we need to look at the needs of underserved populations. Charlie mentioned several of the populations that we currently lack resources for, and I'll definitely touch upon a few more. But for now, I wanted to go ahead before I move into my next talking points because we have some Q&A on the agenda. Any questions before I would move forward? All right. So next, we wanted to give you some information about our current homeless system. So we'll provide you in a future meeting a more robust map that will look at all the different providers that play a role in our system. For now, just want to introduce you to what shelter resources that we currently have within our community. Again, these numbers and figures will be provided to you in writing. So we would have Arbor Youth Services operating a shelter for individuals birth to 17 years of age. That is currently a shelter with 10 beds and 2 overflow beds. Arbor Youth also operates a shelter for those 18 to 24. They are currently operating 11 beds with 5 overflow beds. Catholic Action Center serves adult men and women, currently at 102 beds. Community Action Council is a scattered site family shelter program utilizing apartment units as shelter. They typically carry 16 beds at any given time. Greenhouse 17 is our primary resource for those fleeing domestic violence. They have a 43-bed facility with approximately 4 overflow beds. Hope Center is our largest congregate shelter serving men. They have roughly 120 year-round beds and 86 overflow beds. Salvation Army, serving women and families, has 158 beds with 12 overflow beds. It's important to note also, serving both women and families, they have only 19 family units. And then we have Bluegrass Care Navigators, a medical respite program providing short-term respite for those being discharged from settings like the hospital where they need additional time to recover. We have approximately 3 beds in use on any given night on average. To give you a rough sense of the other resources within our system, transitional housing had largely within our field fallen out of favor as we were pushed towards the housing first model. And that's not to say that we want to go backwards, but we also need to think about diversifying the type and stock of housing that we have available within our community. At present, we have only 61 transitional housing beds. 2 of those are for youth, 18 to 24. The other 59 beds are all earmarked for veterans. So we largely lack transitional housing within our system. Rapid rehousing is short to medium-term rental assistance with a cap of 2 years. Presently, we carry approximately 117 rapid rehousing beds operated by providers like Arbor Youth Services, Community Action Council, Greenhouse 17, Mountain Comprehensive Care Center, and Volunteers of America. Permanent supportive housing. We presently have approximately 375 permanent supportive housing beds. Unfortunately, a large number of those are for veterans only, approximately 276. So that means we have roughly 100 permanent supportive housing beds available to the general population. These are currently operated by providers like New Vista, New Beginnings, Mountain Comprehensive Care Center, and Lexington Housing Authority. Finally, we include in our housing inventory count other types of permanent housing that don't necessarily carry those supportive services. This would be things like our emergency housing vouchers. We received 76 of those as a community at the start of the pandemic, and that is a resource that is no longer available. No additional EHV vouchers will be awarded to communities. And unfortunately, we have passed the deadline to, even if one of our existing vouchers becomes open, we cannot reassign it. It goes away as soon as it's no longer in use. So this paints a picture that it's not just our shelter system which needs work. It is also finding ways to scale up the housing options that people are able to exit shelter and go into. Also wanted to just touch a little bit on the city's role within our homeless system. I think it's important that everyone understand that this is not a direct service office at the Office of Homelessness Prevention and Intervention. We are an incredibly small team. We just this year became a team of 4. With this level of staffing, we work primarily as a funding and coordination entity. We would do things to engage the community to help coordinate for things that are larger than any one organization, help facilitate solutions, help educate and advocate our lawmakers and the public about what is needed. We also do things like develop written program standards. That includes for emergency shelter. We develop standards so regardless of which shelter that someone goes to, there are some baseline expectations around how operations work, what types of services or support that an individual receives. We set and monitor performance targets. As several of us have mentioned, we could easily throw millions of dollars at this problem and still potentially not be effective. It's important that there are evaluation mechanisms in place to help guide us towards proven and effective solutions. We also coordinate for situations like extreme weather and public health emergencies. We've alluded several times that the COVID-19 pandemic had a catastrophic impact upon our system. We had shelters that had to greatly reduce the number of persons that they were able to serve. And some of those shelters have never restored their full capacity that they saw pre-pandemic. Also wanted to touch on funding sources. We'll get much further into this area, but to give you a sense of what we're presently working with, currently my office has available a fund called the Innovative and Sustainable Solutions Fund. That is an annual set aside from the general fund. It was set at $750,000 annually until fiscal year 25, and it's moved to a percentage of the previous fiscal year's revenues. At present, we are at about 1.4 million annually going to that fund. Presently, by ordinance, it is used as a source of pilot funding. It is not intended to be the ongoing source of funding for any one shelter, organization, or program. And so typically we are looking to fund something for a period of 1 to 3 years to help those programs get proven outcomes and pursue other forms of funding towards long-term sustainability. We also commit approximately $1.9 million to support annual operating costs of emergency shelters each year. That's through the Extended Social Resource Program. We have an additional $2 million from winter warming solutions going each year. And then we have our office developing an annual application for continuum of care funding, which brings approximately $2.55 million into the community each year for housing and supportive services. On that, I would say that is a source that we definitely want to look at to pair with some services that can be attached to things like transitional housing and permanent housing in the future. Finally, as we get down to our time, want to just go ahead and point out a couple of recent changes within our system which impact the work that we are doing here in this room. Some recent reductions within our shelter system. Arbor Youth's transition age youth shelter serving individuals 18 to 24 had to reduce down to 11 beds from 24 beds. This change has occurred since we released the shelter study. Salvation Army in 2023 reduced their bed capacity by about 20 beds. That was done to eliminate a lot of those overflow beds, which were consistently being utilized on a nightly basis and improve safety conditions, but it's left a gap for women and families within our community. The Catholic Action Center has transitioned to more of a transitional housing model. They are not necessarily going to accept new individuals each night on an emergent basis. It would be on a case-by-case basis as they have capacity. That's another factor that limits some of the options within our community. And then finally, unfortunately, the Mother Teresa shelter, which provided 16 shelter beds for veterans, is no longer in operation. Another change since the shelter study was released, decreasing our beds by 16. Other things that we should be mindful of as a group, we are also in a state and in the community where House Bill 5 has made it effectively illegal for individuals to camp. And we don't have the ability on every given night to say that there is a resource available for individuals. We lack shelters that can accommodate individuals who are couples without minor children, individuals with pets, those that have significant mobility issues or disabling conditions. We lack environments that are suitable for those that are experiencing serious mental illness. We also lack shelter resources for those that might identify as LGBT or might have difficulties in accessing shelter beds. I think, sure.
Officers, no offense, officers, pick up people from, it's a family right now. I ain't gonna tell you exactly where they at. They is up on the bridge right now. Scared to go to the Salvation Army, Women's Salvation Army, because her kids is, he's got mental problems. He likes to fight. And he's more, what's called it, disturbed, what you call it?
Mentally ill.
You're mentally ill. So she choose, they go to school, but she chooses to stay up under this bridge. I take them food every once in a while.
You need to talk to me.
Okay. But anyway,
In McKinney-Vento.
why does the police brother take these people to jail and take them to a homeless shelter? The first thing they do is take them straight to jail.
No, they don't.
So I can say that when we first implemented House Bill 5, the first 2 months, we had approximately 15 citations each of those first 2 months. That's now down to about 1 per month. For example, police have invited my office to speak at police in-service trainings to give people a little bit more knowledge of our resources and a point of contact they can reach out to. And I do consistently see police reaching out to me, evenings, holidays, weekends. And I think some of the challenges is it's not that the offer isn't being made for someone to go to shelter. It's that sometimes people are refusing to go to shelter because it's not an environment that they feel safe or that they will be successful in. And for some persons and populations, we don't have a shelter bed to offer them. So definitely, I think that police are doing the best that they can to try to walk a middle ground and try to connect people with resources, but you can't connect someone to a resource that doesn't exist. So we have to build those resources to make sure that there are alternatives.
I'm pretty sure that House Bill 5 will probably come up frequently, so I wanted to go ahead and throw some data out there just so everybody had it. As of today, we've only placed that camping charge 29 times, and that was 14 arrests, 15 citations, and only 1 person's been charged twice. We largely just take enforcement action when we receive repeated complaints and somebody refuses services numerous times. So I just wanted to provide that information for everybody's awareness.
Is there any other questions for me? I know we have got a few minutes to try to wrap up and I don't want to take all the time. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Do you want me to keep chatting? I'm the chatty one. Okay. So we want to be really mindful of your time. Next on, if we want to open up for some discussions, did anybody have anything that they want to somewhat talk about, or we can move a little bit into the how frequently we'll be meeting? What's the pleasure of the group?
I'm very sorry. I mean, I got to speak my mind.
Do
I'm
it.
sorry. The jail. There's a lot of my friends don't even want to come out of jail because they ain't got nowhere to go. They rather act up in jail just to get more time to stay in there for the winter. And it's sad. You know, they'd rather smack the officer or do something crazy just to stay in jail. And it doesn't make sense because they ain't got nowhere else to go. I mean, what can we do? I mean, look, this paper don't mean nothing. Actions means a lot to me because I'm homeless. If you ain't never been hungry, I mean, really hungry, your stomach growling, walking the streets all night long, looking in trash cans. I used to do that. You know what I'm saying? I used to look at trash cans for food. It's not fun. Waking up cold, piss on yourself, nowhere to shit, nowhere to wipe your butt. I'm sorry, Miss Jenny. I'm just real. It doesn't, I mean, I didn't become homeless just like that. I become homeless because my wife passed. I got 3 sets of twins. Thank God all of them is grown. And I raised all of them. I don't go live with my kids. I choose not to. I'm a grown man. I support my own. But I don't have enough money to even pay the deposit. I got enough money to pay rent. I ain't got enough money to pay deposit. That's only stopping me from getting housing. It's the deposit. It's a lot of us. Man, we not asking for much. You know, I don't have no, everybody in here got a college degree. Then went to college, graduated and everything. I haven't. What you need to do is come up out of them suits. Come to Jenny's place for 24 hours, be homeless for 24 hours. An undercover officer will walk you for 24 hours in a group, sitting in the park all night long with no money, no credit cards, no nothing. And experience how it feels to be homeless. Talking about it and experience is 2 different things. Live it for 24 hours. Can you do that? She has it once a year.
No, not since COVID.
Well, since COVID, but I'm just saying, man, it's
No, you're right.
it's a job. It's an 8-hour job being homeless. We don't know if we're gonna wake up frozen to death. All we know, we just want something to eat. It's a place to be warm. That's all we ask for. We don't ask for. I mean, a lot of us ask. You see a lot of panhandle, but a lot of them panhandlers is hungry. It ain't about the liquor. It ain't about the drugs all the time. It's about getting something in their stomach. I bet you when you leave here, you go to McDonald's, Arby's, Texas Roadhouse. Where the hell is I'm going? I know I'm going to eat at Miss Jenny's place. I know that. I know I ain't gonna miss a meal. But just be thankful that y'all got a place to go. But remember this. Everybody in here is one step from being homeless. One step from being homeless, man. One step. Mess up. You be out there with me. Hopefully, if God willing, I ain't gonna be homeless too much longer. Because I'm trying to do the right thing. And it's hard to do the right thing. You know, just be thankful that you can pay your light bill. You can sit back in your lazy boy and your big chairs and your 52-inch TVs. You know, I'm just grateful that I got a place to lay my head and a blanket and a pillow and something to eat. That's a blessing for me. That's all I ask. Help us out, please.
Can I make maybe a good suggestion? Because I know, Diane, you're going to start talking about the committees and other things. And Greg, you're right. People, you know that. We all feel it. How can the hearts be touched and the eyes open to the reality? Okay? So, Diane, that may be part of your little thing coming up as far as committees, etc. But if you all would allow, I would like to work with Greg and maybe a few others of you that I know very well have done our 24-hour homeless, etc. But to come up with some ways that might be helpful for the committee, whether it's a video, whatever. So I'm just throwing that out there because I do hear his passion and I understand that passion.
Community leader Tana Fogle. Greg, you are right. We are one paycheck from being homeless. You know, people in Eastern Kentucky went to sleep one night and they woke up, there was a flood and their children were floating down in the water. People in Western Kentucky went to sleep, kissed their family goodnight, woke up and a tornado hit and they were homeless. And so, Jeff, thank you for the different definitions that you attach to what does homelessness look like and the definition of a homeless person. Our systems need a makeover. The systematic systems that's put in place that doesn't address the root cause, which usually is being poor for homelessness. We strive every day to make sure that people have their dignity intact. When the hope is gone, hopelessness set in. And thank you for sharing the statistics, because on the flip side, it looks like everybody's getting arrested because they sat in the grass. I used to tell the city council that. They was just sitting on the hill. What are they doing arresting them? And so thank you for sharing the real facts. Two places that I know really has been attacked, though. I don't know if anybody's here from the hospitals, but people will cut themselves and injure themselves just to go in the hospital to get a bed or to sit in the emergency room for hours to be warm. Those are the things that I want to bring to the forefront of some folks. And then they may be labeled mentally ill when all they're really trying to do is survive just one more day. And so I'm not here to do a guilt trip or anything. What I hope to bring to the table is reality of what homelessness looks like. And it's a hard pill to swallow. It's a hard pill to swallow when you see a mother and a child and a father and a child trying to get in to a place where they don't take children or children are not allowed. And so we got a job in front of us. And we're here to step to the plate, Mayor. We're here, and I hope we all will work together. And I would like to see more impacted people at the table, because you can learn from books and you can learn from, I don't know what the packet looked like. I didn't get one. So I'm sure Tiffany will give me one after this meeting and I can go and look at it. But some things are left out of a pie chart. You know, everyday living is left out of a pie chart. Those people that showed up at the lighthouse the other day, and even they were unruly, some of them, but they had the right one on duty. And but we loved them anyway, no matter what they smell like, no matter what they look like. We just gave them love. How did I get out of homelessness? North Key Mental Health in Northern Kentucky. God, faith, and a desire to want to do something different. I was so tired and beat down. And so I had these wraparound services. But you know what? I'm here to tell you all, I had to put some skin in the game. And that's what Greg and I will offer, to help other people like us to put some skin in the game. You can throw all the money you want to at it. It's just like recovery. Until the person is ready to stop using and do something different, that's when the miracle happens. The miracle's out there. And one woman told me I was the miracle. And I started to believe that I was the miracle and I could get back to the yellow brick road that I got off of.
I wonder, Tanya, if we could take Jenny's recommendation and actually, if Greg and you and could center either, whether it's experience. I know Tiffany was just saying we're going to be doing tours of some of the shelter programs. We also want to invite people to be part of the point in time count. But I think with the three of your all's knowledge and passion, if one of the committees can be exactly that, you know, of bringing that voice of people that in their lived experience and bringing that experience to this committee. I don't mean to to take away what other people's experiences are here. I don't know, maybe people have struggled with things, but I think it would be refreshing to hear. And I think it's also critical. I heard the mayor say, and a little bit in my remarks, the goal, I hope, is not to pile on more work. It is surviving for people that are experiencing homelessness or at risk. So the goal should never be what can they do more of, but how can we provide opportunities?
Yes.
I loved when you were talking about the stable recovery. I've been following that because a friend of mine is there. And I know Jeff with HPI, there's been some flex funds of just, as you were saying, just some quick things can make all the difference. Like for many people sitting around this room, we might not think $500 would change much. $500 can change a lot. But we've gone through that fund so quickly because people need a deposit or electricity or an ID or their car repaired and those things. So having a good understanding, I think, of how people, small amounts of money and maybe partnerships with employers and business communities can truly transform a lot of people's lives. Not everybody's, but a lot of people. And so I know we're getting close to the five. Yeah, please.
Look at that. I want to offer up a point of information, and I'm moving back to a point you just made and one that the mayor made in her presentation. I happen to sit on the board of Stable Recovery, and I've been a part of that group since it was founded and have supported it financially and physically as a mentor. We've been presented a great big elephant here today, and you can only eat it one bite at a time. And, you know, I'm hearing a lot of identification of problems, which in my world, we don't spend a lot of time on problems. We try to spend time on solutions. So if there's a desire to change the paradigm within the city about how we treat addiction and alcoholism, then I would suggest that we have a point in one of our meetings where we hear from the folks from Stable Recovery, because their program is succeeding at an 85% success rate in getting people off alcohol and drugs and making them citizens in the society that we live in that are contributing. Now, that happened because there was an industry that needed folks to work, but just the therapeutic nature of work. And I have thoughts about how the city could provide a lot of therapeutic ways for people to work. I've seen those in other communities, folks that can earn a little money like Jeff to pay a little rent, buy a little food, whatever, but it requires effort and it requires a change of attitude, as was identified by somebody who really wants to change and take a different direction in their life. So I would offer to connect all the dots to help make that happen. There's a group of gentlemen that are affiliated with Stable Recovery and the Hope Center who have already told me they would be happy to come in as former homeless and who are serving as mentors to testify to this group about what's worked for them and about this level of responsibility that they had to take in their lives. And we're able to do that because there were monetary incentives. There were incentives to change their life. So I'll leave that where I found it. If you want to take advantage of that, I think we could make that happen really easily. I think there's a partnership right there. Have those folks come in and tell you how to do it in the community. They're making it work. They're succeeding at 85% of everybody that comes through that door, and it's well over 100 men and women now in 3 years. So I would suggest that that be seriously considered. Thanks.
I would love that. I would imagine the pleasure of the board. Should we take up that offer? I think it'd be wonderful. Another group that makes me think a little bit that is doing really fascinating work is DV8. I'd love to sort of bring them to the table as we're kind of looking at business and the partnership of employment and business and substance use. And I think it'd be fabulous. So we will be in touch with you for sure. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Diane, I'd like
Yeah.
to just kind of talk a little bit about, we partnered with Charlie Lantern last year. Has it been 2 years almost? With the program is called Hands Up for Housing. And so we were really looking at families that were experiencing homelessness and how to help them with sustainability. And so in doing so, we sat down with Goodwill and we came up with our protocol. And so the key was to help our families with sustainability. So what did that look like? It might look like helping them with job training. So one of my first cases, I remember we had a single mom that had just been divorced that only worked the entry-level job, but she became homeless with her 3 boys. So she went through the program, and so she went through the job training program, and so she was able to sustain better employment. In fact, $21 an hour, they placed her in employment. We assisted her with finding housing that was accommodatable to her needs. And still today, she's been able to sustain that housing. But we did what we call those wraparound services. So we helped her with her first month rent. We helped her with her security deposit. And then Fayette County Public Schools, our office also came in with, saying on her second month, do you need help with food? We would rather for you to pay your rent, we'll help you with food. Do your kids need clothing? Do they need a coat? Do they need this? So we came back with those supports for that. One thing I will say to take under consideration, what I also saw was an increase in single dads. We had a hard time finding them emergency shelter because at the time, Salvation Army didn't take men with children. So that's another increase of our population that's out there. Also, a suggestion that I have is that we do poverty assimilation, this group.
What would that look like for you when you're saying that? I mean, I have an idea of what you mean by that, but what are you thinking?
The poverty assimilation. It's done, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's done by it's either Community Action or it's the 4-H. And so I was shocked. I ended up homeless. You would not think, you have to actually, you get assigned a family in a situation, and you actually have to articulate through the system. And this is a way for everybody to learn how our families have to go through the system. And so it'll be something I can help us connect with.
All right. That would be wonderful. I want to, before I forget to, Tiffany, can you share, what is the email for people to reach out if they have comments or suggestions? Do we have an email set up for that?
Yeah, I just want to chime in real quick, just because it's getting late in the evening here. And while she's looking for that email, just recognizing the fact that a lot has been thrown at us. Greg spoke so passionately about being homeless and being on that edge, right? And then our challenge of trying to find all the Gregs out there that we can help lift and take to the next level. But there's so many others, right? So I just want to just say at this point, because it's late in the day, and please, Mayor, if people want to keep going, that's fine. But just recognizing time, we can get an email out, right, and put together, a survey. What? Because I'm looking at the agenda, we got to talk about subcommittees and so forth. Maybe we get some type of survey out there and say, what subcommittees do we need to be looking at? Because to Lee's point, it's an elephant, right? We're not going to take the elephant down today. And I know we can all get passionate about this topic. I'm quite sure, listening to everything coming in, we're gonna deliver something to the mayor that the council can get together and look at. So just want to at least kind of make sure we can kind of pinpoint this since it's 10 after 5. But I'm gonna turn it back over Diane, and you can take us home, young lady.
All right. I think you have the email, though.
I'm sorry. Yes,
No.
I do have the email. It's homelessnesstf@lexingtonky.gov. And myself and Commissioner Lanter and Jeff, we all have access to that. So that's for the public to send anything. That's for, the task force, whoever can email us directly with comments, questions about the task force work, and we can share that with the co-chairs.
Wonderful. So I think, just for you all to know, I think the plan is for us to meet the second Wednesday of every month here in this room at 3:30. This room is available, so that seems to work. So we will meet the second Wednesday of every month here in this room at 3:30. We'll have subcommittees going on in between. What I'm hearing a little bit just from the topics, just to kind of recap, is a little bit of kind of people's lived experience and assimilation conversation. Maybe some groups coming in here to talk to us about the connection between business and people getting back on their feet and those experiences. I'd love one thing we didn't talk about, which we really can't do now, but the housing folks, so affordable housing. I know Winterwood is here, so affordable housing, and what are some of the concepts that are happening in other communities and what can we do? And then also some best practices and some models that the mayor discussed a little bit in her opening remark, is looking at what other communities are doing. So I was hearing those 4 themes sort of popping up as we were talking. More may come up. We'll kind of determine through emails and things if people want to sit on certain committees or people have ideas of people they want to bring to this conversation. That would be ideal. But I also don't want to lose you on first day of task force. So I want you to leave somewhat committed to this and optimistic in this, and we will send out some meeting minutes. And I really appreciate Cheryl's time. Yes, yes.
Could I ask that when we gather for these meetings in the future, I will for last days kind of kick off and kind of get over the end and get us down the road. If the work be done in task force and brought to our certain committees and brought here reports, so that we're not rehashing all these issues every month, about what's happened and all the issues. Make it clear that we feel something. When we come in, we focus and have discussion around those reports and the timing and that, so we can all be
Absolutely. I think today we just needed to sort of settle down and make sure everybody sort of understood the issues and understood kind of what we were dealing with the community. But I appreciate your comments, and I think that's a wise decision. So thank you so much for that recommendation. Yeah, anyone else? Mayor, you can do whatever you like.
So I have one suggestion, and that is everyone in here is busy. And I think that you need to set an end time to the meeting, and everyone needs to be committed to end at 5 o'clock, or because we've already lost some folks. And we could go on for quite a while. This was kind of an unusual meeting because we're just getting started, but would you appreciate an end time?
Yes.
I think it's important. I've been in thousands of meetings over the years. If you don't have an end time, people don't stay. Just my input, finally.
All right. Well then, Abdul, if you're good with it, I think we'll call this meeting to adjourn. Appreciate everyone's time. You'll be hearing from us, and we'll see you next month.
You have a minute.